Hi, it's the show with Ron, and today, as every day, we're looking at the headlines with context to see if we can put things a little bit in perspective, not get wrapped up in all the media hype, maybe just a little bit. And yeah, you're seeing right here, Trump is waving to you. And as usual, with the media, there's a lot of emphasis on the peculiarity of Trump as a candidate, his comportment. He doesn't even seem to try to be as polished as other candidates, and here he seems to have, some say blood, but other photos, it looks, maybe it's ink from something, maybe it's a blood blister, I don't know. Uh, of course, the opposition is throwing up these very big headlines about disease. And then here we have a more right wing source where the picture looks a little more organic and less like ink. Whether it's blood or something, who knows what it is. But, this sort of story is going to be very important to the media because a lot of the media is interested in counteracting the claim that Biden looks too old, speaks in a halting way, or is perhaps senile, not fit. They want to show that Trump as well is quite old and maybe doddering as well. But this sort of a thing is a sideshow. And everybody thought Trump himself was a sideshow until he won. And yeah, Trump's excited today. He won Iowa. I know maybe I think they just said 14% of the people came out to vote. So it may seem a little bit strange. Or is that indicative of anything? As I noted yesterday, a lot of the caucuses in Iowa in recent years did not result in the front runner, did not result in the person who became the nominee winning. A different person. So who won the caucus didn't end up being the nominee. And I have a sneaking suspicion that is why the Democrats are not holding their caucus in Iowa this year on this date. They're doing it next month to make sure that no upstart challenger might be able to beat Biden, because Biden has those weaknesses of his age. I also got a message, someone saying, well, surely Trump the prosecutors they're going to stop him through all these legal cases. And I know in a lot of countries, the courts sideline candidates very often or bar them. It hasn't been as common in the United States. And from my perspective within the United States, to me, that feels very strange that the courts, the leading candidate or the nominee of all the people who won the presidency once, and then the second time he ran, he got more votes than any other person who had ever run, except for Biden, who got a little more. And all that high vote count on both sides was perhaps due to all of the advance voting because of the, once in a lifetime COVID situation. So it would seem strange to me that the courts could bar him over these cases. On one hand, all of these cases seem very justified, and the things Trump has done have been terrible. But obviously, the timing of the cases to come into play in the buildup in the election year and through state governments where many of the prosecutors openly ran on platforms that they were going to get at Trump, it leaves a situation where the voters could feel that the deep state, the conspiracy, is trying to sideline their candidate. So I would have a feeling that even though these state prosecutors are going to keep pushing all of these cases, that somehow overall the system or the courts would try to have these cases slow down and not and allow the elections to run out and see how that see if Trump gets in or not. And on the other hand, we have all this stuff about how dangerous Trump is, the threats he's made, and then we have articles like this where assassination attempts on the rise worldwide. Is the USA next? I don't know what they mean by that. I don't even want to talk about that on YouTube, but certainly we have very aroused passions on both sides about the outcome of this election. And for as many people who think Biden is just fine and the economy is great and there's no reason to worry, there are people that are fanatical Trump supporters. And for every fanatical Trump supporter, there are people who are saying he's a threat to democracy. I mean, you always say that the other guy is going to be disastrous for the country's governance, but this time they're saying it's a dictatorship coming, and that kind of speech could lead to situations like this. And it is a time maybe like the late '60s. You have a nexus of a younger disillusioned generation. You have lots of unpopular wars that have gone on. Some are closing out, some are just getting started. You have economic threats now and on the horizon, and you have great polarization. And during those times, we do should see more protests and assassinations, just as we had during those cataracts of history. They group there. They're not just assassinations or protests. They're not just random here and there. They go along with the timber of the times. So here we have more stuff about the election. Romney, the Mormon, who I always liked. I think if you want to understand some Americans, it used to be, the younger people now are more progressive, but it used to be people used to think, we just want someone who is not going to tank the economy, is not going to lose American prestige overseas, not really that they're going to enact a lot of new initiatives and be very progressive. And Romney is maybe part of that old style. He's like a country CEO, and he's part of that older part of the Republican Party that doesn't like Trump. That Trump is obviously not in step with the values, at least from their perspective, of the party. What else do we have here? Multicultural Americans to become majority population by 2050. U.S. has had this many times before. It's a nation of immigrants, colonists, or whatever. Not too long ago, people were freaking out that the subhuman Irish were coming in here, and they didn't even think they were like people. But now everyone in America claims Irish ancestry very lovingly. And so with this, in just a generation of the height of anti-Irish sentiment, that anti-Irish sentiment perhaps being almost equal to anti-Black sentiment, within a generation of that, the Irish got completely intermarried and integrated in all aspects of society. And I'm sure, by 2050, all this Hispanic blood will be in there, strengthening American society. And doesn't matter, I'll be long dead by then. So that's my prediction. Here we have something, just a quick mention of this. This GOP front runner in North Carolina, governor race supported banning abortion without exceptions. Now he avoids that. This is the idea. I looked for the bigger, grander principles in some of my more buttoned down ages. I'm not buttoned down anymore, but in the past I did all kinds of consulting, and you look for broad campaign things for people to construct ideas around, and one of them is liberty. And what the Republicans are finding out is that liberty is important, is a key word. So Americans want to have the same liberty to have abortions when they want to without government interference as they do to carry around and shoot guns. If you're looking at these issues for American consumption, you have to err on the side of what I would call liberty in that respect. And Republicans who have gone too far in the anti-abortion have lost in elections and are learning their lesson there. Okay. These are just kind of fun headlines occasionally. Obviously, The Guardian's a left-leaning one media outlet, and that they're kind of would besmirk at religion, certainly. Sexual pleasure, a gift from God, but avoid porn, Pope Francis advises. Yes. Thanks for the advice, unmarried guy. Yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of perspective on that. Last tourist destination on Earth, Antarctica. Really would like to go there, one of the last continents. That's, to tick off your continent card is Antarctica. I don't want to fly over it. Just take it. Flying over a place is nothing. You got to go on a ship. And I've looked it up, it takes you got to go all the way down there to the bottom of South America. And then you take like a cruise ship, and it will take 4 or 5 days in the cold, roughest seas in the world. And then you get off for a few hours in the snow. And it's super expensive too. I want to do it. I don't have the time, or the money, and it sounds grueling. And here we have something that would be great. I would pay for the time. Just I don't want to be. I hate cruise ships. I don't want to be on a cruise ship. But I'll pay extra to be on a flight. If they could get a regular flight, just touch down. I'll get out, take a picture, a selfie for the cred, and touch the dirt, and then I will say I've been on all the continents. But this article's about saying, can't we leave one spot undestroyed, unselfified? And my answer is, for everyone else except me. That's usually most people's responses to that. Stuff about the Royals. What else do we have here? Super strong, creepy weed. I thought this was about a weed that grows in your garden. No, it's about marijuana. You get to a certain age, and if you're smart enough and wise enough, got to open my drink here. If you're smart enough and wise enough, you just will not drink alcohol or do all these drugs. They do nothing for you. It's too bad they're getting all these kids and telling them it's okay. It makes you diverge from your goals. It's too much of a distraction. I think everybody knows it at some level. Man sues ex-dates, $75 million over negative Facebook reviews. Not really worth clicking on, but good for a smile. Now, here's Schwarzenegger detained in Munich for unregistered watch, hauled off to pay ATM taxes. This is about sort of, he's bringing in a watch to auction for charity, but the government still wants its cut or something. But anyway, this brought up my idea. Not my idea, my philosophy. So here's the philosophy of life. If you've ever wondered what the meaning of life is or the philosophy, I'm going to tell you right now. Life, all of life, 100%, is problems. 100%, all of it. Here, I want to turn, this is so important. I want to make sure I don't have an alarm coming on here. It's off. Okay, now pay attention. All of life is problems. But then when you go through life, you separate these problems into problems of success or problems of failure. So problems of failure would be like, I don't have enough money to pay rent this month, or I can't afford to buy a hamburger, or this sort of stuff. I'm not making any money. I just want to get this video gaming console so I could sit down and do nothing all day. You kind of judge your problems. It's kind of a problem of failure. It's on the negative side. On the positive side would be a problem like, gee, I have to pay a lot of tax this year because I made so much money. Or I'm going crazy because I got to choose between going this university or taking this high-powered job. It's just driving me crazy. Or being Arnold Schwarzenegger and having to take out 10,000 Austrian dollars on your credit card to pay tax as you're bringing in an expensive watch to be auctioned off for charity. So just accept that all of life is going to be problems, that is, stressful problems, but make sure your problems are tending to the problems of success rather than the problems of failure. Wanted to mention this eye-popping interest spike on our national debt. Well, my national debt, 34 trillion, and running a trillion in the deficit every year. Now remember that anybody that tries to stop government spending is portrayed in the press as right-wing extremists. And the people who do it are nutty right-wing extremists. There's a small little cadre of House of Representative guys. They're the most crazy right-wing extremists because they try to put these spending limits in the government procedure. It has to be the ability for the government to keep paying bills has to keep being approved through this mechanism that was created in the 1990s because it was seen that that was needed, or else the deficits would go skyrocket. Well, it didn't work, and now anybody who stands up and tries to put the brakes on things is portrayed in the press as a crazy person. You've seen this all the way. It's always the Republican right-wing extremists who do this, and unfortunately, I don't know when cooler heads will prevail. Most of the politicians, most of the Republicans, most of the Democrats are just keep it going. We don't want anybody's Social Security to stop. We don't want anybody to know that there's no money there. The cupboards are bare. Who was the best president ever? Maybe Bill Clinton. He balanced the budget, the yearly budget, and the debt. The national debt was very low then. And since then, we've had all the Republicans and all the Democrats adding trillions and trillions to it every year. In just a little over 20 years, we've racked up that 34 trillion. And now, if you listen to the media or most of the politicians, they say it can go on forever. So you have to decide what you believe, if you believe them or if you don't believe them about that. Richard Simmons. I always loved Richard Simmons. I grew up as a little kid in the 70s watching his exercise show. He made me the man I am today. Unfortunately, Pauly Shore is going to star in his biopic, I see here. I don't even want to click on that. This is a good article. Last week we had the Brits and the U.S. I got to turn on. It's hot in here. Hold on one second. Last year we had the Brits and the U.S. Bomb after the Houthis in Yemen, after warning them, after the Houthis were trying to participate in this Iranian instigated situation to expand the Israeli Hamas war in support of the Hamas by disrupting shipping in the Red Sea. Certainly they have an eye on domestic policies. that the U.S. and the U.K. and other countries have in supporting the war. They see how the people back home are not so interested in pumping lots of money into it. So if you expand the war, it gets more expensive and messy. So the Iranians are taking advantage of that. So the situation with China here is, China stepped in a few years ago very aggressively in the Middle East, trying to make peace as a neutral broker between a lot of these countries. The U.S. is not seen as a neutral broker, really, because they've been rock solidly behind Israel and everything they've done forever. And they were instrumental in getting an agreement, a normal, I don't know if it's a full normalization of relations between arch enemies Saudi Arabia and Iran. And part of that agreement was that Iran was going to no longer stoke the fires of rebellion down in Yemen and in the Horn of Africa, above the Horn of Africa there. However, as we've seen in recent weeks with the Houthis bombing and the U.S. saying that Iranian Republican Guard commanders are embedded with the Houthis, helping them out, setting up these missile batteries or whatever they're using for the strikes, Iran has completely disregarded China's peace deal. See, they had to agree not to keep intervening down in that area in turn with their peace with Saudi Arabia. So the current situation of the eruption of the war and the widening of the war and how kind of obvious it is that Iran is involved in as a player in all of this, it makes it's a setback to China in China's efforts to supplant the U.S. as a power broker in the Middle East, because the deal that they made with Saudi Arabia and Iran has not stood the test of time. So the China's warning the U.S. again, escalating the strikes, but China just kind of looks foolish here a little bit because they haven't. Because Iran is still meddling there in Yemen. We are on the brink of World War III. We've talked about this before. Lots of this may be a good once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for countries to take chances and do invasions here and there just because they want to. Because the U.S. resolve seems to be weakened. That's a sort of a simplification, but it's in some of my old videos. AI bill could outlaw parodies, political cartoons. I don't know, but there needs to be, should someone be able to scan all my pictures on Instagram and then make a porn video of me? If they do, please send me a copy. I'd like to see that. No, but the idea is that these big companies, the big tech giants, the Microsofts, the Googles, have just scraped the internet and using our content for all this stuff, for news reporting, for our faces. That should not be legal, and they really need to. The government really needs to do something. And I'm happy that stuff's starting to move in Congress on this. Sharing fake nude images could become federal crime. Maybe it should be. People are taking like teenage kids in high school and then making these and then sharing them around school. And I guess you can get in trouble of that kind of with existing laws. But why are the AI companies just able to allow this and just say, well, we just provide the technology? Something's wrong there. Electric car owners. The electric cars don't work well during the cold weather. Can't get them charged up. I'll stick with gas, thank you, or petrol for the rest of you. I think that's all. There's quite a bit of news today, even outside of Iowa. We got some more exciting stuff. We're heading up to the 23rd, and that's going to be the New Hampshire primaries, and we're going to see if Trump can continue on his disturbing campaign to become president again. And one way or another, it'll be a crazy, wild ride in the world right now. And I'm hoping to be here with you to provide some context. I think sometimes if we know about what's happening in the world, it can make us feel a little bit not so invested in it. I'll have a little bit of understanding so we don't feel so frantic just from the headlines. Got to pick our Art of War card today. This is ancient knowledge from the Chinese. It might help us. What does it say? Use overwhelming force. This is certainly a U.S. doctrine. Strategy. Act with more power and depth than your adversary can handle. Basis. Every adversary has a breaking point through which his capacity to oppose you collapses. So, the point of these, obviously, is we use them in our personal or business life. Some of these can be axioms. So you're making a move in business, making a move in your company. You're going in to ask for a raise or the promotion. You make sure you have all your ducks lined up, that you're the only candidate, that you're the only option, that you look like the greatest person for the job. So that's our Art of War advice. And I had one last thing I wanted to tell. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to let you know a little about my novel, my latest book. Young people find their dreams and failures in Bangkok, and then go on to the furthest places in search of something the modern world can no longer give. This is the story of There Are Still Unknown Places, my new novel on sale at Asia Books and on Kindle ebook. It's a tale for a new generation, disillusioned by the promises of the world, wanting to search for their destinies in far-off places.